on. Matt Shadetek, homie.
Hi, I'm Matt Shadetek. I'm a producer and DJ based in Brooklyn, New York. I'm also the Senior Logic Instructor and Curriculum Designer for Dubspot and Dubspot Online. In this video, we're going to learn how to do some trap drum programming, and we're going to do it in a little bit of a different way. We're going to focus on being able to play in some of these fast hi-hat and roll patterns live from a MIDI controller. So the track that you're listening to now is called Logos. It's from my album, The Empire Never Ended, which is available on iTunes. And we're going to look at how to execute some of this using some of Logic's tools in the environment. So there's a little taste of the music. What I'm going to do is start us off in an empty project. We can leave that open. We'll fire up an empty project here, create a new software instrument, and we're going to use Ultrabeat to do this. So I'm going to load up an instance of Ultrabeat in stereo mode. And in Ultrabeat, I'm going to load up a drag and drop sample kit here, which is going to be a blank kit, which is going to allow us to load samples into it. The samples that we'll use for this are from the Lex Luger kit, which you can find at the link on screen. I made a selection of a couple of the samples that I liked in here, just a kick, snare, clap, and hat. You can pick some ones that you like. These are the ones that I chose. So first up, we're going to load the kick in the first slot. Then we're going to load up the snare, followed by the clap. And I'm just clicking on each slot, each voice in Ultrabeat, and then going over here to load sample and loading the sample in. So we'll load up the closed hat as well. And so just make sure you load them in the same order that I've done here because it's going to become relevant later on. Okay, now that we've got the samples loaded in, we're going to dive into the environment. And what we're going to do in the environment is we're going to create some arpeggiators, we can close Ultrabeat now, that are going to control our fast rolling drums and allow us to play them live from a MIDI controller. Now, when we get to the environment allows us to manipulate the MIDI data going into Logic. And so it's divided up into a couple of layers. This is the mixer layer, and we're actually going to do some work here in the second video in the series. But right now we're going to go up to the click and ports layer. And this is where we can see the MIDI data coming in from the physical input, right? So all the MIDI devices connected to Logic. Right now I'm just going to use the caps lock keyboard. So we can see when I play a C1 to trigger that snare. We can see that data coming in both on this keyboard object and on this monitor object here, which is showing us the numbers that are coming in. This is flowing through this wire, through this wire, through this wire into the sequencer input. This is what will be recorded into Logic's arrange window when we hit record. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce an arpeggiator object so we can start making some drum rolls. I'm going to go to New, Arpeggiator, and I'm going to connect the monitor object, which is labeled input view, to the arpeggiator, and then connect that to the sequencer input. Before I do that, just so you can see what's going on here, if I don't make that connection, no more MIDI, right? You can play a prank on your friends. They'll love that, right? Disconnect the MIDI input in Logic. Now we can connect the arpeggiator to the sequencer input, and if we play, right, pressing the space bar, our drums that are coming in are being arpeggiated, right? So when I hold down, for example, the hi-hat, we get this repeating pattern instead of just a single note, right? Note that the arpeggiator is only going to work if Logic is playing. Now, in the arpeggiator, we have a resolution control, which controls the rate, right? If I change it to 16th notes, we can create these kind of faster hi-hats. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to set this up so we can play different notes and get different speeds of hi-hats and eventually snare rolls as well, which is going to be a lot of fun. Now, in order to do that, we've got our arpeggiator hooked up, and what we want to be able to do is to send different notes and have that play different resolutions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by adding in a transformer object. And this is where we're going to get a little more technical. What we're going to introduce is some conditional logic here. So this is going to start to say, if I receive this note, I'm going to do something a little bit different than if I receive another note. Now I'm going to take that transformer and connect it up, put it in there before the arpeggiator. And now if we double click on the transformer, we'll see we have some options in here. The mode up here decides what the transformer is going to do with its input. So right now it's just saying apply operation to anything that meets the conditions down here in the conditions area and let everything else pass through. We're actually going to change the mode. You'll see that there are a bunch here. The one that we're going to use is condition splitter true goes to the top cable. So what that means is if something matches the conditions here, it's going to go out of this output, this little triangle, and if it doesn't, it's going to go out of the bottom. So what I'm going to say is, okay, the status that I'm looking for equals note. What kind of data? I'm looking for notes. What note am I looking for? I'm looking for my hi-hat, which I can see here is a D#1. So over here, the MIDI channel doesn't matter. The velocity doesn't matter. What I want is the pitch, right? And the pitch is going to be equal to D#1. I'm just going to dial that in, drag up to D#1. There we go. Now, when it receives a D#1, it's going to go out of the top output, which is connected to the arpeggiator. But if it receives another note, it's going to go out of the bottom output. And we're going to take that bottom output and connect it directly to the sequencer input. Now, what this means is the only note that it's going to go to the arpeggiator is going to be D#1. So if we play, so you can hear the kick and the snare are not arpeggiated, but the closed hat is, right? So we're starting to split the data that's going on. Now, we're going to build out a more complex control system for this, but first, let me just show you how to turn this on and off. We're going to do that using what's called a cable switcher. So we're going to go up to New, Fader, Specials, Cable Switcher. We're going to add this in. What this is going to do is allow us to choose what cable something is going to go through. So we're going to use this to turn this MIDI processing on and off when we're not using it. So I'm going to connect the input view here to the cable switcher, and then I'm going to connect the top output here to the sequencer input and the bottom output to the transformer. Now, let's start the sequencer going again. Now, when I play my closed hat, it's not arpeggiated because it's going out of this top output, which is going to the sequencer input. But if I switch it to the lower output, we get the arpeggiation. So this is going to allow us to turn off and on our arpeggiation. This is important because if we have another synthesizer that we want to play, right now all MIDI data for all instruments is going to be passed through this processing. So we want to be able to turn off this arpeggiation when we're not using it. So this switcher is going to allow us to do that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to style this a little bit. We'll go to Style, As Button. And this is going to now choose if we have it on or off and just be a little more visually readable. And we're also going to set the range here because if you notice, when we added a second connection, it actually added another output, and it'll keep doing that as you add connections. And so these outputs are given numbers. They're going to be 0, 1, and 2. What we want is just to go back and forth between 0 and 1, which are going to correspond to off and on. So that's going to be done here using the range. We're going to take that and set it down to 0 or 1. And now if we click, it's just going to toggle back and forth between 0 and 1. And we're going to be able to turn our arpeggiation on and off. So that's kind of the building block that we're going to use through this tutorial series. And what we're going to do in the next videos is we're going to take this and build it out so that we have a bunch of different arpeggiator rates and a more complex setup. So please stay tuned for the next video in the series from the Dubspot YouTube channel. If you want to learn more about me, you can find me at mattshadetek.com. I'm also on SoundCloud, and my album, The Empire Never Ended, is out on iTunes. If you'd like to learn more Logic, at Dubspot, we offer a 48-class course both online and at our school in New York City. I hope this was helpful for you, and thanks for watching.
Welcome to Dubspot. We believe in providing you hands-on experience right away. Whether you're completely new to music and want to turn the sounds in your head into a musical reality, or you're an experienced artist looking to refine your skills and add new tools to your arsenal, we're ready to meet you at your level. For students of all ages, all levels, and all styles of music, Dubspot is here to help you achieve your goals. With course offerings both online wherever you are and at our school in the heart of New York City, we are ready to guide you through the next phase of your musical transformation. Whether you want to produce music, DJ, or do both, you've come to the right place. Come explore Dubspot for yourself, become a part of our community, and make music.